And welcome back to A Yelp in the Dark. Today we're going to work on forest tiles. Remember those trees we made? Well, they need a home. It also occurred to me that I don't tend to show how many tiles I make in all these sets. Typically, I don't need more than 9 tiles. That's an 18-inch by 18-inch battle mat there. I might make extra tiles if I feel I need some specialty tile later, but this ought to do. Today's set will use both sides of the tile. One side will be simple forest exterior, like shown above, and the other side will have a river, a pool, a crevasse / lair / cave entrance, and a road. That way I can make any combination that I might typically need in a forest. I start by base coating all the tiles in golden brown. Next we're going to do a 3-color wet blend using stippling with a medium-sized fuzzy brush. In your palette, prepare a healthy dollop of brown, golden brown, and mocha. This is one of those instances where you don't need to add a splash of water to thin out the paint. We're going to stipple on first the brown, then the mocha, and finally the golden brown, all while the previous coat is still wet. It looks like a great mess of chaos, but once we put the grass in, your brain is going to start reading this as dirt. Embrace the chaos. Happy accidents. Next, I'm going to measure out the roadway. 5 centimeters from each edge, I'm going to put a mark. I'm just going to make sure that when I paint in the roadway, I end on those marks. That way it'll meet up with the next roadway. For the river and pool tiles, I measure 3 centimeters from the edge. For the crevasse, I just lay it in with black paint. The pool and the rivers, I lay out with a 50-50 mix of golden brown and green teal. That'll give it that swampy, murky river look. To paint the grass, we're going to use another triple color wet blend. This time, lime green, celery, and Spanish olive. We're going to start with the lime green, followed by the celery, follow that with a stippling of the Spanish olive, and then back to the lime green. This is the way I paint the grass on all the tiles. I leave a healthy gap between the water line and the grass on the water tiles. With a 50-50 mix of golden brown and deep gray, I paint in some lower ledges to the crevasse. We're trying to hint at the fact that it's a lot deeper than a 2-dimensional flat piece of wood. And with a thin mix of golden brown and dark gray, I'm going to scribble in some stone texture. Then using the same mixture, I'm going to paint some slightly higher ledges in the crevasse. I also use this color to highlight the edge of the lowest ledge in the crevasse. Using golden brown, I highlight the upper edge as well as squiggle in some texture. Using a 1:4 mixture of burnt umber and water, I create a glaze that I'm going to use to shade the inside shadow areas of the gorge. The crevasse. We wouldn't want you to get confused. For the river and the pond, on the sides where the water meets the edge, I make a mark in the middle. This is where our first web is going to connect. If you've seen my sewer tiles episode, you'll recognize this technique. Essentially, we're going to paint 2 webs down, a dark web and then a brighter web over that, and that's going to represent our water. Using some hunter green, I start painting the web. I'm going to speed up the footage so you can see how I lay it out. Essentially, I place some random big circles, and then I just fill in the gaps in between with smaller circles. Using Ocean Breeze, I paint over the lighter web. This is the surface water web. I make sure that I don't copy the same dark web that's below it. I want these webs to overlap and offset. I'm going to make another glaze with 1 part hunter green, 4 parts water. And we're going to paint this over all the areas that are covered in water. This will help unite all the different tones of greens and blues that we've got there. But I'm going to let the mixture overlap onto the dirt a little bit to indicate where the ground is overly saturated with water. Using a 50-50 mixture of white and water, I'm going to paint in a few highlight reflections from the water. I'm watering down the white because it's a very, very strong color and covers very well. I want to thin it down a little bit and make it semi-transparent. I did say when I made my trees that I was probably going to come back and repaint the bases, and I'm going to do that now that I've figured out what techniques I want to use for the forest floor. I just do them up the same way I did the dirt and the grass on the other tiles. Now I could have stopped there and had some perfectly serviceable tiles, but I wanted to break up that monolithic light green with some other types of vegetation. And if you look at a forest floor, it's not a lawn, it's ferns and phlox and twigs and brambles. I don't quite have the patience or the time to do that in detail on these tiles, but I am going to hint at it, using some brown to paint in some twigs and some hunter green to paint in some phlox and some ferns. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast darkness to these tiles. There are 3 different kinds of contrast. There's brightness and darkness, black and white. The second type of contrast is the contrast of color, purple versus a red. The third kind of contrast is the complementary contrast, and that's where you use the opposite of another color's combination. For instance, blue is the opposite of orange, because orange has no blue in it. It has red and yellow, but no blue. Red is the opposite of green, and yellow is the opposite of purple. When you use those, you create extreme contrast. And we see and identify things through contrast. Using brown, I paint in areas where I'm going to put stones. The brown is going to represent the shadow in the dirt around the stones, or the depression. And using dark gray, I paint in the stones. And then I highlight them with gray. And finally, to highlight the shrubbery, I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of lime green and bright yellow. I know this is a lot of detail to put into this, but I think it's worth it. You also notice that my cutting mat is in the shop. It's a foreign cutting mat, so this promises to be expensive. And when everything is dried, I hit it with a coat of gloss Mod Podge, followed by a coat of matte Mod Podge. And now we have some forest tiles. Time to take our adventures outdoors. Where things are more dangerous, and you're likely to be eaten by a guru. I'm safe. I'm the DM. Thanks for joining me on today's project. If you would like to support my channel, I've started a Patreon account. If you'd like to see previews of my upcoming projects, join us at the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook. All the links are below in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe.